that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder how gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 351st edition of Energy Week with George Harvey and Tom Finnell in the flesh. This is not a regular news broadcast from a week's news. This is actually a review of the things that have happened during the course of 2019. And we're taping this on...
This is not the best of the blog. This is the best of the best of the blog.
Okay. This is, we're recording this on the 19th of January, so it can be shown...
The 19th of December.
So it can be shown in the last week of December because there would be no show
This
for
place
that
is
week.
shut down.
The place is shut down. So we wanted to make sure that everybody had something to laugh at, and maybe they can laugh at this. The stuff that we're talking about is from earlier editions of Energy Week over the course of the year.
Over the course of the whole year.
We will read the date for each of these. If you want to read the article, you can go to geoharvey.com, excuse me, geoharvey.com, and click on the calendar date, which is going to mean clicking back through the calendar a lot for a few of these.
Well, I'll read the calendar date as I read the name of the...
I was going to do that with the title because I've got it in front of me on the title.
Oh.
It's whichever way you want to do it. Okay.
I'll read the title and I'll let you read the blurb. That's what we usually
Well,
do
that's,
anyhow.
yeah, but we were talking about the date.
Well, the date's part of the title.
Okay,
At least
fine.
I got it here.
Do it. Do it.
Well, the first thing we need is a picture, and now
We've
we
got a
it.
picture.
It's called Ocean
There it
Waves.
is. And as I said, this
It
is
looks like ocean, and there's a rabbit in the picture.
a rabbit.
Yeah.
A rabbit?
To the right, to the left of the sun.
That's in the clouds
It's
behind
in the
sun.
clouds. Yep,
Oh my
there's a
gosh.
rabbit in the clouds.
What a
Playboy
mind
bunny.
you have. You can catch things that I miss, for sure.
Well, it's called Ocean Waves, and it is dated January 13th, and it says oceans are warming 40% faster than predicted.
By the way, the dates that we have on these are not the dates that they appeared in the news. They are the dates that they appeared on the blog.
Oh, okay.
This is something to point out.
Well, at least this is how you identify them.
Yeah, that's right.
So it doesn't
and
matter.
you can go to the blog and you can...
Don't worry about the calendar.
Yeah. You can click on the calendar date. Actually, you could enter January 13th in the search thing, and it would give you the date, and you could click on it there. So, this is from Clean Technica. Newsflash, the oceans are warming 40% faster than predicted just a few years ago. That finding is contained in a new study published January 11th in the journal Science. As oceans warm, they will absorb heat less efficiently, and that means that with time, the land will get hotter faster. And also it means that Greenland will melt faster.
As we just finished talking.
Yeah.
Well, let's look at this guy here. This is from Ars Technical. It appeared on January 30th, and it's called A Major Utility Implicated in More Than a Dozen Wildfires Filing for Bankruptcy.
California utility Pacific Gas and Electric, which we've talked about as PG&E, has filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. And by the way, this is going on now. The date of this article is January 30th.
I think it's in court now.
It's in court right now. We're almost a year later. It faces billions of dollars in potential damages and fines stemming from liability in 2017 and 2018 wildfires. PG&E has secured $5.5 billion for operations while it restructures. And in the current news is that the Governor Newsom has put off some of the stuff, delayed some of this for a while, and the future of the nuclear power plant at Diablo Canyon is kind of caught up in all of this, and that's in doubt.
And now, is that one built already? Or
that one is in Northern California, and it is.
Is that the one they've been working on for about 10 years?
No, this is an old plant.
An old plant.
Yeah. It would have to be closed down earlier, but.
Yeah.
Anyway,
We got another picture coming up here.
we have a picture coming up, and this is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, obviously, and an item from CNN.
Appeared on February 8th. Ocasio-Cortez and Markey unveil Green New Deal resolution. And you're going to tell us who Markey is.
Yeah, well, this is Senator Ed Markey from Massachusetts. Two Democrats, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of New York and Senator Ed Markey of Massachusetts, unveiled their Green New Deal resolution, which outlines the definition of the massive piece of legislation they hope will tackle issues related to the U.S. role in climate change. And Tom, I've got a take on this that is going to be unlike anything that you've got, I'm sure. And
Well, I was going to say is it comes from CNN.
It comes from CNN. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has done something here, and Ed Markey too, although Ocasio-Cortez is the person who really...
She's the Green New Deal.
Wow,
lady.
she's the one who's really pushing this. Ed Markey...
She's pretty smart.
She's a pretty smart lady, but the thing that's interesting about this is I think that she may have had an even bigger impact worldwide than Greta Thunberg.
How?
I go through the news and I find, one country after another, you've got major political parties saying they want a Green New Deal. What the blazes is a Green New Deal? They're talking about a reference back to Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
Absolutely.
We're talking about something that has been resurrected from the Great Depression.
Got us out of the Great Depression.
And it's been put on the table by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. But, I mean, if you look at the Democratic candidates for President of the United States, virtually all of them have endorsed
the Green New Deal.
The Green New Deal in some form.
It sounds good.
Well, see, the thing is, the Green New Deal never really was put together in a way that
It was
clearly...
never really defined.
I was going to say exactly that. It was never clearly defined. So we've got something that we can talk about. It's got a goal. We know what the goal is. How do we get there? Well, that's the question. And Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Ed Markey tabled this thing, and they brought it before everybody, and now there it is. We can decide to do it or not. But
well, that was February 8th, and people are still talking about it.
they're still talking about it, and they still don't have a definition. But and there's another thing I want to say also. The people who oppose this say it's going to cost $100 trillion. Well,
what's it going to cost if you don't do it?
Good question. But the 100 trillion was a made-up figure.
Yeah, made-up number, right?
And
nothing to do with reality.
The people who are pushing this say, yeah, it's going to cost $1 trillion a year. Okay, that's a lot of money. But let's consider something here. As you said, how much is it going to save you? Because if you close down a coal-burning power plant that's scheduled to close anyway, and you want to replace it with something, are you going to really replace it with a coal or natural gas power plant, or are you going to replace it with something cheaper like solar or wind?
I would think.
Yeah, the money there has to be spent anyway, but the interesting thing is, if you're spending any excess money, how is it being spent? It's being spent hiring somebody. This is the biggest business opportunity.
Jobs.
This is the biggest business opportunity in the history of mankind.
Yeah.
And
we've talked about that too.
Yeah.
I mean, you put in turbines out in the sea. You need a port to serve those turbines.
You need ships to serve.
You need ships.
Just think about
They're specialized ships.
Yeah, just think about those ships. We're going to need jack-up ships galore, and it's like jack-up ships are not other ships that have been changed.
No, they're built from the ground up.
They're built from the ground up. Don't take old Liberty ships and turn them into jack-up ships. I wonder if there's a Liberty ship still in existence. Okay.
Well, one time there was a whole bunch of them in the Hudson River.
I remember driving by
It's like
those.
about 50 miles worth of ships.
It's crazy. Okay, should we go on?
Yeah, we should. We're going to visit some old friends or old new friends or something like that.
We were just talking about
It's
that.
from CNN on February 13th. How teenage girls defied skeptics to build a new global climate movement.
Picture after picture of this movement that I see, it's young people, and it's like 14 girls and one guy. And I'm sitting there saying, man, if I were a kid, I'd be right in the middle of that. Okay. Greta Thunberg's climate activism got her invited from her native Sweden to Davos, Switzerland, where she excoriated a room full of executives, telling them they were to blame for the climate crisis.
Didn't I use that word before?
Excoriated. It's a good word. It's a good word to remember. She was not alone. Young women are rising in many countries. It is primarily women.
That's true.
It's primarily young
women.
young
Yeah.
people, and basically, you know, for this show, I just kind of excluded Greta after this. She went through so much during the course of the year. She was odds-on favorite to be the Nobel winner of the Nobel Peace Prize. She did win the place of Person of the Year for Time magazine. This is an impressive 16-year-old we're talking about here.
Well, she's not going to go away in a hurry.
No, although she did say she's going to lighten up a little bit for the time being. She's
really
been
burning
really
the candle
busy.
on both ends.
Okay, our next item is from Clean Technica, and we have a picture.
Got a picture here.
And this is a picture of a Harbor Air aircraft. And
last week we showed a picture of that same aircraft taking off. Now it's landing.
Yeah, this isn't it landing. This is the aircraft taxiing. They tested it on the water before they tested it.
Well, what I'm just saying is last week we showed the same picture, but it's facing the other way.
No, it was a different picture.
Well, I know that.
Believe it or not. Oh, yeah, it looked like this. Yeah, and we also saw a picture of this aircraft about 2 feet off the water, as I recall. I might be wrong about that, but this is from, you said April 7th.
April 7th, Harbour Air is switching over to 100% electric seaplanes.
Harbour Air, based in Vancouver, Canada, is the first seafaring airline to convert its complete fleet of aircraft. It says here. The complete fleet will be powered by electricity. It has 41 aircraft, which will be converted to reach longer life cycle with highly improved efficiency and lowered maintenance costs.
Well, it came from Clean Technica.
Yeah.
And what's going on there is in Vancouver.
Yeah.
A lot of people around Vancouver live on islands.
Yeah.
And the only way of getting there basically is by boat, swimming, or by plane.
Swimming. Yeah. By boat is the slow way.
And this plane operates like a water taxi.
Yeah, and they've got 41 of these things, and they're converting all of them to electric. And if you look at I saw
they're all short trips.
They are. I saw a rundown on the comparison costs of lifetime cost comparisons of electric buses and diesel-powered buses, and it'll give you a reason why they are doing this.
Well, it's much cheaper to operate.
Your profits on a diesel bus.
Much cheaper. It costs more to buy into it, but it's much cheaper.
The profits from an electric bus can be as much as 4 times as high as the profits from a diesel-powered bus. So why would you buy diesel? And that you get into a thing that says, okay, why would anybody buy diesel? And
for the very same reason.
The question is answered when you look at the market and you discover that the majority of buses sold worldwide are electric.
These days, that's exactly what's going on.
Although they're not in the United States.
Made in China.
Yeah, and they're almost all being made in China. The United States has been set back on electric vehicles by policy. This is
basically
bad policy.
Yep.
And it's policy that's driving climate change, but it's also going to put us at some point really far behind everybody else in the world. Okay, should we move on from that?
Yeah, we better.
Okay, we've got another item from Clean Technica.
April 13th, Fraunhofer reports combining farming with solar is 186% more efficient in the summer of 2018.
The Fraunhofer Institute has conducted experiments in what it calls agrophotovoltaics for 2 years in Germany. In 2018, they found that potatoes they grew beneath solar panels did better than they would have in full sun.
And so they're not only getting 2 crops, where they ordinarily would get one of those crops is actually growing better.
That's right.
Amazing.
Now, the solar doesn't do quite as well because they space the solar panels out a little bit in order to...
So you lose a little bit of solar.
For the amount of area that you've got, they're giving up about 20% of the solar, or actually it's here. It's
186% more efficient.
They're getting...
That's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. And this, again, was an article that was followed at various places during the year. The same report came from Fraunhofer or a similar report came from Fraunhofer later, and we got a report.
We've touched base on it more than once.
Yeah,
Yep.
on a different organization, which, as I recall, was in Tucson, but
Tucson.
Okay, is that the?
That's that one. That's enough for that one.
Okay, and there's that town in Texas called Waco. Okay, I don't think we have any
spent a week
viewers.
there one night.
Did you? Okay.
Well, we got a picture coming up, but I think it's in the next one. The picture applies to the next one. So let's just talk about this one now. April 22nd.
Yep.
It's from Yahoo News.
Yahoo.
It's already begun. Feedback loops will make climate change even worse, scientists say. I remember when we talked about this one.
Yeah. Rising Arctic temperatures set free a vast amount of carbon previously locked beneath permafrost. These additional greenhouse gases speed up warming, and that melts more permafrost. It's a feedback loop, and scientists say it has begun. And
I think last week we just showed a picture of permafrost.
And we talked about the fact that a different study said that the Arctic is now emitting more carbon than it's absorbing.
That's exactly what we said.
This is not good news. We've seen a lot of not good news in the course of this year.
But it's a hoax.
Okay, now we've got
we got a
picture you were
coming up
talking
here,
about.
and this is interesting. The
Yeah,
picture is entitled "Reestablishing Vegetation."
And the title of the article.
May 10th, How Weeds Help Fight Climate Change.
This is from the BBC, and you know, as I went through looking for the articles that were going to come up for this show, I hit this and I remembered the article. I remembered the research that I did, because this article was so interesting that I actually went online and searched for it and the name of the guy who had developed this technology, and just went through it for hours. Okay, but let me read the blurb. Most people see weeds as a problem, but one farmer has found that they can help make dry, damaged land lush again, and they also absorb carbon from the atmosphere. His observations on the flow of water from high to low places inspired what is called natural sequence farming.
I remember talking about that.
Natural sequence farming is the trick. This is a guy, my recollection now is that his name was Andrews, and he started developing this about 35 years ago, and people said he was a crackpot. Well, he started a new farm. He did natural sequence farming. First couple of years, the local farmers complained that what he was doing was going to leave them with less water, and what they discovered was
they got more water.
They got more water. He was allowing willows to grow along creeks in Australia, and the farmers were saying, no, those are invasive. They're weeds. They are very thirsty plants. And what they did was they slowed down the water that was flowing down that stream.
So instead of rushing down, they were able to use it.
Which meant that the ground could actually absorb more.
Suck it up.
And what he was doing turned that entire little valley that it was in, because the other farmers all adopted it, into a space that was relatively lush, where the people did not lose cattle in a drought, where everybody around them lost huge numbers. This is a very special thing, and it's something that we should keep an eye on. It's a very positive thing.
Well, weeds absorb carbon dioxide as well as...
One of the best is hemp.
Yeah, hemp does.
Yeah. Okay.
Interesting.
Item from Think Progress.
Yeah, we were just talking about buses, weren't we?
We were just talking about buses.
This is from May 25th.
Yep.
Bus wars are over. Electricity and China won.
The bus wars are over, and electricity has won thanks to a big boost from China. With China's massive investment in and support for electric buses, electrics are now racing past a 50% share of new bus sales worldwide, according to a recent analysis by Bloomberg NEF. And Bloomberg NEF later, not in this, but later, said that the United States has fewer than 1,000 electric buses, where the Chinese city of Shenzhen, that one city, has over 16,000. And, you know, it's like the Chinese have got 400.
We're missing the boat, guys.
We are missing the boat so badly. And the person I blame for that is Donald Trump. It's not Donald Trump. It's Donald Trump. It's Mitch McConnell. It's the Koch brothers. It's the you know, you go through the list. This is a group of people who I believe are just trying to prevent the United States from getting into the 21st century because their technologies are in the 20th and 19th century.
But they're making money.
But they're making money.
Well, the buses make a lot of sense for electricity because you can charge them at bus stops.
Yes, isn't it beautiful?
I mean, you just build it into the pavement, and the bus
Or
stops.
overhead.
Or you could do that
You can
too.
do it overhead. There's
But
a lot
the
of
one
ways
I
you can
was
do it.
thinking of was they just have these things buried in a pavement.
And there's not even any wires. That's something.
You can't see anything.
This is like I can't. It's hard for me to imagine.
The bus is getting charged and nobody even knows it.
Yeah. Okay, our next item is from Clean Technica, and we do have a photograph
got a
for
picture
this.
here, yeah.
This is another one about
I
transportation.
remember this picture.
Yes.
This comes from Clean Technica, as you just said. It's from May 27th, and it says, Nickel Ride, which is the name of the company, finds EVs are so affordable they can give rides for free. Well,
Talk about-
that's sort of what they're doing.
Well,
yeah, they are doing it.
They are doing it for the customers. It's free. This is a matter of a situation where the business plan is changed, and the old technology can't compete with it. Nickel Ride, which operates in some Florida cities, has found a way to use the advantages of electric vehicles for a competitive edge. Customers can download a Nickel Ride app to request free rides. The company uses advertising revenue to pay for the drivers and cars.
So they're putting signs on the side of their cars and they're getting paid for it.
And the cars are going to places where customers want to go, which means they're going to stores, which means that people at the stores find out.
My God, how the money rolls in.
Wow. Yeah.
Well, let's move up to June 11th.
Item from Wind Power Engineering.
I guess I'm going to put you up, or us,
You're going
us
to
up here.
put us up. Nobody wants to look at me.
June 11th, Wind Power Engineering. U.S. renewable energy generating capacity has now surpassed coal. Well, that's old news.
Well, it is, but we're going through the year in
But
review.
this is June. It was new news in June.
It was new news in June. According to an analysis by Sunday Campaign using new published data from the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, U.S. electric generating capacity of renewable energy sources is now, for the first time, greater than that for coal. I want to point out the capacity is greater, but the amount being generated hasn't caught up yet because renewables have a lower capacity factor than coal.
Yeah.
But they're expecting it to catch up by sometime in 2021, so it's
Well,
not that far in the
storage
future.
helps.
Storage helps enormously. Absolutely, it does.
And by the way, that's Sunday, not like in Sunday, Monday. It's Sunday, like
That's
in rainy
right.
day.
Yeah, it is sun space day. Another thing that is important here, and this is something that came up in the Sunday Campaign, and I actually wrote to the guy who runs it about this, and I did research on going back to FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, using their data to find out a bunch of stuff about how this shift is all happening. And I found out that while the orders for renewable energy are increasing month to month, the orders for new plants that use natural gas are decreasing rather rapidly.
Is that so?
And by rather rapidly, I mean like we're getting into the range of 20% per year.
Okay.
So basically, if they've got 100 gigawatts on order now, it'll be 80 gigawatts next year, because some of them get canceled, some of them get installed, but they're not drawing in new contracts as fast as the old ones are being disappeared. Okay.
I think so. That's the one from Wind Power Engineering.
Yep.
So we'll move up to June 29th, one from Clean Technica.
This is a fascinating article.
Fracking creates a glut of fossil fuels and a mountain of death.
And I keep thinking about this.
You don't think
article.
about this much.
But I keep thinking about this particular article. Steve Schlotterbeck, former chief executive of EQT, one of the largest shale gas fracking companies in the United States, which would make it one of the largest in the world, shocked people at a petrochemicals conference in Pittsburgh recently by telling them that fracking has been an, quote, unmitigated disaster, end quote, for investors in shale companies. people are investing money in the shale
Yeah.
companies, and in many cases they're losing 100% of it.
Well, one of the things that's happening is they're not getting the oil or the gas that they're expecting.
Yeah.
These things are running out a lot quicker than they expected.
That's right.
So they're spending a lot of money to develop this, and it only runs for a short period of time.
They have to go back and refract the same place 18 months after it starts.
Do they?
Yeah,
Yeah.
in many cases they
So
do.
it's costing them money.
It's costing them money, and the money runs out, and then the whole business goes up for sale, and it turns out that the business debts exceed the value of the business, and it just disappears. And then the assets that they've got get sold at a huge discount to another company that runs the same thing and disappears the same way.
Well, we got a nice picture that I'm going to show.
Isn't this a beautiful picture? It's
This
one of
is
my
nice,
favorite.
yeah. That's a Swedish spruce forest. Could very well be in Vermont.
Except
Certainly
that
could
Sweden
be.
isn't in Vermont, so since it's Swedish, it's got to be. Unless, of course, there's a Sweden, Vermont. Maybe there is. Okay, this is from CNN.
Aha. July 5th. Restoring forests could capture 2/3 of the carbon humans have added to the atmosphere.
You want some
We've
hope?
talked about that, and it's,
Yep.
it's
In several places.
in several. It's the way. It's probably
What-
one of the best ways to get CO2 out of the atmosphere.
It's one of the things. This is one of the things that gives me hope that we actually, once we decide that we're going to move on climate change, we're going to be able to deal with it. We just have to make that decision, which we will not do with Donald Trump and Mitch McConnell in office. But that's because I don't think they can change. I don't think they're. Anyway, I should be reading this and not gabbing.
Well, what it says is restoring forests could capture 2/3 of the carbon that humans have added to the atmosphere.
Sure does. Restoring the world's.
And it's an inexpensive way to do it.
It is. Restoring the world's lost forests could remove 2/3 of all planet-warming carbon that is in the atmosphere because of human activity, according to a study from the Swiss University ETH Zurich, published in the journal Science. And you know, these stories have been appearing one after another. They come up almost daily about forestry and the connection of forestry with drawing down carbon out of the atmosphere, and the ways they've got of doing this. They've got drones that will plant trees.
Yeah.
This is
We talked about that.
it's like, where are we going? Well, I don't mind drones planting trees. I don't think I'd want one in my backyard, so maybe I'm an NIMBY. But
Well, the trees sequester the carbon.
Absolutely.
They make wood out of it.
yeah, but they've got to stay there and grow. Little trees don't sequester much carbon. You got to
Well,
let
they're
them
little.
get big. Yeah, you got to let them get big. Okay, should we move on?
Yeah, we'll move on to one.
I have
from-
no idea how long this show is going to be.
We'll figure it out.
Okay.
And I didn't get the clock going.
Yeah, well, there wasn't a
Nothing
clock
to
to
look at.
get going. I can tell you from here, we are half an hour in,
Oh, okay.
almost.
July 11th, we're okay.
We're
That's
okay.
about halfway through.
Yeah.
It's from Modern Diplomacy. July 11th, U.S. is the world's largest producer of fossil fuels.
You know, every time I come across modern diplomacy, you know, I'm thinking, what? I'm putting up articles from an organization that is about diplomacy. It's almost like Hellenistic Shipping Worldwide is the name of an organization that comes up every once in a while. Okay, BP's, this is British Petroleum, but now it's BP, Statistical Review of World Energy 2019, released in June, the findings that reveal that the United States is leading the world in production of fossil fuels. Among the important facts in the review, one thing stood out. The United States made 98% of total global additions.
And that's because we're slowing down.
This is this is additions in oil exploration. Somehow I didn't get that into this thing, but 98% of oil exploration investment is from the United States.
So it's just oil we're talking about.
Oil and natural gas.
Oil and gas. We're
Yeah.
not talking about coal.
And what does that tell you? It tells me that the Saudis aren't doing it, the Russians aren't doing it. You know,
we like to blame them, but we're the ones that are doing it.
Yeah, and it also means that maybe the Saudis and the Russians and a few other people have got an understanding that some people don't have. I've got my computer telling me that something important is happening. I'm going to ignore it.
Well, while you do that, I'm going to bring up a picture.
Oh, I've got the picture right
You
here.
got the picture.
There you go.
And there's the picture of a big blue marble.
Big blue marble. This is from the BBC.
It's a NASA picture. And it's from the BBC, July 24th. Climate change, 12 years to save the planet. Huh? Make that 18 months.
Yeah, and this is depressing when you consider what just happened at COP25.
Well, this was July, so we've lost 6 of those 18 months already.
Yeah, we've got one year to get this job done. And the job I'll have to explain. Last year, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, reported that to keep the rise in global temperatures below 1.5 degrees C this century, emissions of CO2 would have to be cut 45% by 2030. But the decisive political steps that make that possible will have to come about very soon.
Say that again, because that's what's happening.
That's the thing that's wrong here.
It's
the
politics.
decisive political steps to make it possible for us to save the planet have to come in the next year. And that means it's going to have to be done with the current administration in place.
Ain't going to happen.
Well, it means that there's going to have to be some we're going to have to catch up.
Has to be applied.
I mean, if Donald Trump is removed from office,
Won't be.
we will still have Mike Pence in place.
Yeah.
So you know
that's an unknown, and it could be worse.
I don't think it could be as bad because I don't think.
Well, he's
I think
an
Mike,
ideologue.
He's an ideologue, but at least he knows what it is to be president of the United States, and I'm pretty sure Donald Trump doesn't.
Yeah, you got a point.
But nevertheless, the next president of the United States may be put into a position where they're going to have to say, I want the Congress to declare war on climate change. And that means that for that much of what's going on in this country, we're under martial law.
Well, we declared war on poverty. It didn't happen.
Yeah, I know, but it has to be an official declaration of war that is backed
mean a
by
real
declaration of war where the president of the United States goes to the automotive industry and says, sorry, gang, no more cars, which did happen in the United States. They were not even allowed to sell
making
cars
headlights anymore.
They weren't allowed to sell cars that were on dealers' lots.
Yeah.
500,000 cars had to be returned and then subsequently eventually sold to the government. And I remember somebody talking about, what was it? It was a fancy car. I think it was a Packard convertible.
Oh, that was a nice car.
Yeah, and this luxury car, which had to be sold to the government for government use.
Wow.
Because the government was saying you can't, and we had, everything was rationed. And if we got under that rationing system right now, it would mean that half the cars in the country would be off the road right now.
Right now.
So, you know, a president of the United States could have that effect. Now, whether the political will is there to do it, I don't know. But, you know, I think the political will should be there to save the planet, because what we're up against is bad. Okay, now we've got...
From Energy Reporters.
We do indeed.
On August 4th.
Yep.
Germany hopes to replace coal with hydrogen. Well, I certainly hope they hope.
Germany is increasingly looking to hydrogen as an alternative to gas. They import most of their gas from Russia. They don't like doing that. To end dependence on coal. Last month, the economy minister announced funding for 20 hydrogen research labs, and natural gas pipeline owners asked for rule changes to allow hydrogen to be added to the mix.
That works.
They're going to make hydrogen
and pump it into
the natural gas pipelines,
where people will burn it without even knowing what's going on.
Probably they won't know what's going on. That's right, in the course of this, what they're going to be using for that hydrogen is electricity from wind power and solar power that would otherwise be curtailed.
We talked about that yesterday,
or
earlier today, whatever you want to look at it.
Last week.
Last week. But yeah, exactly.
Cool. Okay, this next item.
We've got a picture coming up.
From Clean Technica, and this is a lovely picture. And by the way, the name on the side of that light-colored VW Bug, the convertible, well, they're both convertibles, is E. Käfer, which means
What is it?
E. Käfer, K-A umlaut F-E-R.
Oh, it means electrical car, doesn't it? Or
No,
something like
it means electric bug.
electric bug. Yeah, right.
Actually,
exactly. It means
literally,
electric bug.
E-Beetle is what
E-Beetle.
it means. Yeah, and I don't know what that building is behind them, but isn't that lovely?
Nice building. Yeah.
Can you imagine
Yeah.
living in a place like that?
I don't think it's a home, but it might be.
I think it probably was at one time. It's
Yeah.
not big enough to be a government building. Okay, Clean
Well,
Technica.
This is from Clean Technica on September 10th. Every automaker should develop conversion kits for their gas vehicles.
Now,
That's what this article
this
was
is
about.
what happens if the President of the United States goes to the automakers and says, you cannot make new cars, you cannot make internal combustion engines. What are the automakers do? One thing they can make is conversion kits for all those cars they've got out on the road, which would mean that the cars would suddenly be much cheaper to run. But it would also mean that we'd have a huge number of these things sold to people who want a second car, for example, and or a first car. You know, I mean, this is an opportunity not for slowing down business, but for increasing business. Okay, I should read the blurb. We recently learned Volkswagen is going to sell an EV retrofit kit for its classic Beetle. It's the true revenge of the electric car if a 70-year-old vehicle that has not developed, was not developed for electrification can be retrofitted successfully, then many other vehicles can as well. And you know that
You know, I had a electric Volkswagen.
I didn't know that.
I didn't have it long. A local guy built it.
Okay.
It was a Volkswagen Squareback.
Oh, okay.
And he put a 5 horsepower, I think, which is a huge motor.
Oh, man.
Just replaced the motor with this electric motor.
Which was a DC motor.
It was a DC
And
motor.
you know,
It had
my last car was
regular car batteries. It had about a couple of dozen of them in the back seat.
yeah. My last car was a Prius.
Okay.
It was 2001. It had a 35 horsepower electric motor, as I recall, and that motor was the size of a grapefruit can.
Well, this was a big motor.
I know that, and I saw that and I thought, what is the world coming to? Because I know a little bit about electric motors, and I think of an electric motor that is 5 horsepower being the size of a small internal combustion engine.
That's about right.
You know, I mean, about the
That's
size
about
of a
what this thing
4-cylinder
was.
engine, and so I think of these motors as being huge. Nowadays, you could put 2 of those motors on the rear wheels of this
Yeah, one in each wheel.
one on each wheel, and have 70 horsepower in that.
You'd have a
in
little
that
bit of
bug.
acceleration.
You'd have some acceleration, and the bugs were always such a delight to drive. You know, they were
I've had many bugs.
they were
They
the
were neat cars.
cheapest sports car you could get, but you know, seriously, what was the Carmen Ghia? The Carmen Ghia was
Never had a Carmen Ghia.
but it was exactly the same car, except
With
that
different body.
it was a sports car,
Yeah.
a legitimate
Yeah.
sports car.
2-seater.
Yep.
It was
Okay.
a neat little car.
It
and
was.
I never had one of them.
But the point is, we should be able to take a Cadillac, or an old Pontiac, you know, or whatever, and turn it into an electric car.
Well, I know I got rid of that electric car because the range it had was lousy.
I bet it
I could
was.
drive from Wardsboro to Brattleboro and worry about getting home.
Yeah. How far is that?
About 25 miles or so,
Yeah,
30
yeah.
miles.
Well, that was the old. You know, Tom Simon had a truck. Did you ever see Tom Simon's truck?
I don't think so.
He had a truck. It was a pickup truck, and the back of it was just full of batteries.
Oh, yeah?
And he would
Yeah,
drive
electric truck.
from where he lived at that time in Marlboro, and he would drive down the hill to Brattleboro, and then he'd drive back. And he would barely make it
Barely
home
make it
sometimes.
back because it's uphill.
Oh, it's steep uphill. Okay, we should probably continue our exercise.
I think we should.
Okay, we've got an item here. The next one is from the Associated Press. I switched pictures too soon, so you should probably take us
Well,
down, or I can go back
I'll
to that.
push us back if I can.
Yeah,
Come
do
on.
that.
We're-
There you are.
There you go.
There you go. There you go. Okay. Okay, Associated Press.
This is September 24th, right?
You are correct.
Associated Press.
Yep.
23 states sue Trump to keep California's auto emission rules. I remember when we talked about this.
Yes, and this has been ongoing too. California sued to stop the Trump administration from revoking its authority to set greenhouse gas emissions and fuel economy standards for cars and trucks, enlisting help from 22 other states in a battle that will shape a key component of the nation's climate policy. And you
It's
know,
still in court, isn't it?
it is. From the point of view of a conservative Republican, not a current Washington fake conservative
Yeah.
Republican, but a real conservative
Yeah.
Republican, this is an issue of states' rights versus the federal government. And conservative Republicans should come down on the
Historically.
side of California on this.
Yes,
absolutely.
historically, states'
No
rights
question.
Yeah.
It should be on the side of California. But under Trump, he doesn't want California to be able to tell people that they can't, drive highly emitting vehicles. And honestly, I think the only reason that's true is because that group of people who support him have their campaigns paid for by fossil fuels. Anyway, where are we?
We're up to October 22nd from Clean Technica.
Right.
PG&E head says to expect rolling blackouts for the next 10 years.
Now, we did talk about this
Yeah, we
earlier
talked-
in this show.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
This is kind of scary. If
Yeah,
you live in
it is.
certain parts of California, you're not happy.
They are not happy, but Pacific Gas and Electric is shutting parts of the California grid down to prevent wildfires during periods of dry, windy weather. The
Well,
CE
it's prudence in a way. Really, it is.
absolutely is. I would not want to be in a place where they didn't do that if
I'd
the
rather
danger
have a
was
blackout
there.
than a fire.
Wow. The CEO of PG&E told the California Public Utilities Commission that the state will likely see blackouts for another 10 years. NRP reported. And this article, when I saw that I was, putting this in for the year, I thought about that vineyard. And it was about a little over 2 years ago. There was a vineyard in California that had put in a microgrid that was powered by solar, had batteries, and was on the internet through satellite.
It survived.
And the vineyards around were destroyed in a fire, and it survived because they, even though they were gone for 10 days, they could keep the irrigation going.
Yep.
Wow.
Amazing.
Isn't it? Okay.
Well, we've had this picture hanging for us.
Yeah, well, it's hanging there.
Let's bring it up there.
Yeah,
and
let's bring it up.
Let's take a quick look at it.
Okay, this is from Clean Technica.
October 26th. UN scientists say there is a way to delay climate change for 20 years for pocket change. Climate change for pocket change.
Yes. Again, we're, oh well, what can we say? This isn't forests, this is something else.
Picture called Farming the Desert.
Yes. Rene Castro Salazar of the UN Food and Agriculture Organization told Time magazine that almost half of the 5 billion acres of land around the world that have been degraded, there's 5 billion acres that have been degraded, could be restored for $300 billion. $300 billion is pocket change.
About 2 months of worldwide military spending. Wow.
We could restore that land, and you know what it would do, Tom? It would draw down carbon dioxide.
Well, yeah, the military generates a lot of carbon dioxide.
Well, the military does, but this would draw down a lot of that's up in the atmosphere. Restore that land, and it would draw down carbon dioxide.
Absolutely would. Absolutely would.
So here is a solution to climate change. It's not going to stop
but
climate change
military
altogether.
spending goes into the right pockets.
Yeah, right pocket. See, there again, you've got Tulsi Gabbard, who, by the way, did not vote to impeach Trump.
Right.
She was the only Democrat. No, she was not the
She
only
voted
Democrat.
president, didn't she?
She was the only person in Congress who voted president.
Yeah.
And she said she did not vote to impeach the president because we need to stop the divisions in this country. And I think she's right.
Well, from
As
what
much
I
as
was
I
listening
complain.
to on the radio yesterday, as they were talking about this impeachment process, the divisions are tremendous.
The divisions are tremendous. But we've got to, if we're going to survive and get onto climate change,
Yeah.
we have to stop those divisions.
gotta stop them.
And I think those, I'm a person who says I have one conspiracy theory, which is that people are creating conspiracy theories. Actually, I've got another one too, which is a theory held by many people, that the divisions that have been created in the United States were created on purpose.
I think you're right.
And
It makes sense. I think it makes a lot of sense.
The idea is to prevent the United States from making decisive
Yeah.
actions, such as on climate change.
Well, right now, what's going on is pretty profitable to a very small number of people.
It
But
is.
it's very, very profitable. We see the numbers growing. The number of billionaires is staying the same, and they're all getting
Very
more money.
much richer. Okay, let's see, what are we up to here?
November 5th.
We're up to November 5th with an item from CNN, although this particular item was on practically every news organization in the world.
U.S. begins formal withdrawal from the Paris Climate Accord. It appeared on November 5th.
Yep, the Trump administration announced that it will begin formally withdrawing from the U.S. from the Paris Climate
That's
Accord.
absurd.
The first step in a year-long process to back out of the agreement to reduce emissions of planet-warming gases. Trump is working to reduce federal regulations on pollution. What he has said here is, I don't want a place at the table. I don't want to be part of the discussions.
I
And
just want to pollute.
well, he just wants to. I mean, he's
No,
saying
it's about investing, really.
it is, but the thing is, it means that the United States is not even in the game.
No.
Which means that we cannot influence the rest of the world.
All we can do about it is complain.
Yeah, and the Russians didn't do that. The Russians want to keep selling fossil fuels. The Saudis didn't do it. The Saudis want to keep selling fossil fuels. But the United States, and they kept a place at the table because they want a place at the table. If they
I
want
would too, I would think.
I would think, but I don't think Donald Trump is very wise. Okay,
Well, he's playing for the grandstand.
yeah, I think that's exactly the point.
Okay, we got a picture coming up
We
here.
do indeed. This is from a Renew Economy, although, again, there are a lot of organizations that carry this. And this LCOE from Lazard is something that I refer to a lot when I write for Green Energy Times or Clean Technica.
Tell us what LCOE is.
That is the levelized cost of electricity. And unfortunately, this graph is a little bit fuzzy.
Yeah, it is.
But it is unsubsidized analysis, which means what they're doing is they're taking the, the cost of the electricity and the cost of the subsidies that electricity uses and combining. So
Okay.
if you
That's
stop,
what you mean by levelized.
that's right.
Yep.
And there are certain things that are not included. For example, the potential cost of Price-Anderson is not included for support of nuclear. The federal responsibility for disposing of nuclear waste is not included. And there are a few other things that are not included. But here, what we see is the conventional electricity is is the dark blue at the bottom. Renewable electricity is at the top. But there's something I want to point out about this, and that is the top two items: solar PV, rooftop residential, and solar PV, rooftop C&I. Those two are not really comparable to the rest of the graph.
How is that?
Those are the costs to the homeowner, in the case of the top one, for the electricity that's made, but they shouldn't be compared to the wholesale cost of PVs or wind, because
They're a retail price.
they should be compared to the retail price. So, the cost to a homeowner in Vermont, I don't know what the current electric price is, but it's probably around 18 or 19 cents. It would be, some homeowners would be saving money right off the bat. And they would, of course, also be locking in the price. So there's a lot of reasons why they might want to do that. But basically, if you look at the third and fourth items, the solar PV,
And wind.
which is utility scale, and wind power, you
They're
can see
cheap.
they're the cheapest sources of electricity we've got. So anyway, there it is. You
So
read
the graph is kind of deceptive.
slightly, yeah, but it's still a graph that I use constantly. It's just that you can't look at any of these things and take them for granted. Did you read the title of this?
Well, if I did, I'm going to read it again.
Do it.
November 8th, Wind and solar kill coal and nuclear on costs, says the latest Lazard report. I didn't read it, so.
Okay. The cost of wind and solar continue to decline and now are at a point where they can beat or at least match even the marginal costs of coal generation and nuclear power, according to the 13th and latest edition of Lazard's levelized cost of energy analysis. That marginal cost, by the way, is important. On here, when you're looking at nuclear, you're looking at the cost of nuclear energy as it's charged to the customers. But the marginal cost of nuclear power is very, very low. The marginal cost is the cost of the nuclear power when the plant has already been paid down. And the only charges that you've got are the operating
fuel.
and the operating and fuel. And at that point, nuclear really is very cheap. But getting there,
But getting there,
you got to pay for the plant.
Well, all that interest you're paying.
And what is happening? The cost of solar and wind is going even below that marginal cost. And in coal also, which is why it has got to a point where some coal plants and some nuclear plants, it's cheaper to close the plant and replace it.
Well, we've been observing
We've
exactly
seen it.
that.
Absolutely. Okay, we should probably go on.
I think we should. So we're up to November 9th.
Yep.
From Newsmax. Fed $500 billion in losses shows economic threat of climate change. Wow.
This is from the Federal Reserve, which controls our money supply.
That's the Fed.
And Donald Trump is always complaining about. A Fed official warned risk managers not to ignore climate change. Quote, the U.S. economy has experienced more than $500 billion in direct losses over the last 5 years due to climate and weather-related events, end quote. Federal Reserve Bank of New York executive Vice President Kevin Stiros said.
So he's talking about investors, isn't he?
He's telling investors, you've got to be ready to deal with the cost of climate change because it's costing us $100 billion a year. That's a big chunk of, it's an appreciable chunk of our economy.
It is that.
Okay, our next item is from Science Daily.
It appeared on November 28th, and it states, 9 climate tipping points are now active, warn scientists. Now, this is a scary one.
This is depressing. More than half of the climate tipping points identified a decade ago are now active, leading climate scientists have warned. 3 of them, the collapse of the ice sheets in Greenland, West Antarctica, and part of East Antarctica, would commit the world to around 10 meters of irreversible sea level rise.
That's like 35 feet.
Which puts Mar-a-Lago down at the bottom of
underground.
Underwater. It's underwater. It's, the waves will knock the building down, and that'll be the end of that.
What does they mean by tipping point now?
Tipping point is a state that you reach where it is difficult to go back the other way. And an example of this is the melting of the Arctic ice. The Arctic ice melts. You would hope that you can grow it back again because you get some cold weather and maybe...
And it freezes again. But it ain't happening.
But the problem is we're at a point where the Arctic ice melts and then the sea, striking the same area of the ocean, instead of having light reflected back into space by ice, the light is absorbed by the ocean.
So it gets hotter instead of colder.
Exactly. So those are the tipping points. They are scary, and the 9 tipping points, some are scarier than others, but none of them is good news.
So the permafrost is a tipping point, isn't it?
The permafrost thing is a tipping point, and we, according to scientists, have definitely crossed it.
Wow.
Yep. So here we have...
Got a couple of pictures of batteries here, huh?
That's right.
That's not the batteries we've been talking about, but...
Actually, these are batteries. I think those are batteries that go into powering cars.
Well, these car batteries, they're huge, great big things, and there are a gazillion of these little guys inside
That's right. It's like you got the biggest flashlight in the world. Okay,
Well,
Down to Earth magazine gave us this.
It is. It's just on 2 different pages here. It's hard for me to read it.
Yep.
December 4th, battery prices are falling sharply, says a report.
Battery prices are falling sharply and will continue to fall. Again, we're talking about a technology curve here,
Yeah.
According to a study by Bloomberg NEF, the paper showed prices declining sharply between 2010 and 2019. In 2010, battery prices were above $1,100 per kilowatt hour, but they decreased to about $156 per kilowatt hour in 2019. This is a decline of 97%.
We ain't seen nothing yet because there's people working on
Oh,
batteries
yeah,
that we haven't
absolutely.
even heard of.
That's right.
And they're going to, some of these are going to make the market.
Yep.
And they're going to change things.
I want to point out here that when you're talking about batteries in cost per kilowatt hour, I say this every time because people don't understand it.
Oh, it's very confusing.
As opposed to
It's a
electricity.
different kind of kilowatt hour.
It's a different thing. A battery, the price of a battery is like the price of a bottle, a glass bottle.
Okay.
The price of the electricity is like the price of the water that goes into the bottle.
Yeah.
So if you're brewing beer, the 5-gallon carboy could cost you $25 for a bottle.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money for 5 gallons. 5 gallons of water, you're talking about what? About 2 cents? Here, you're talking about the cost of batteries declining, and this 87% decline, it is now cheaper to buy electricity that has been stored in the battery than it is to buy electricity from a gas-powered peaking plant. And so,
Oh, yeah, okay.
and so the
Anything's cheaper than that.
well, the people talk about renewable energy needing backup power, and they tout baseload power as though it didn't need backup power. I got news for you: baseload power needs backup power, and it comes from expensive plants like peaking plants, and
Basically jet engines.
they're basically jet engines, and they produce electricity that costs a lot of money. And when that electricity is coming online, the utilities very often are paying more for the electricity they're buying wholesale than they charge you retail.
Sometimes quite a bit more.
Quite a bit more. Okay, battery prices are falling. Now we're up to.
Well, one of the new things, it's not new, but this is being reborn is these flow batteries.
Oh yeah, yeah. They're going to be around forever because
And
it's
they
such
can
an
be big.
interesting design.
They can be very
It
big.
is
And a
such
flow
an
battery
interesting-
doesn't have to be something you can hold in your hand.
No, but
It can be a couple of lakes.
yeah, but it is. It's something that you're not going to use in an automobile.
I don't think so.
Different batteries are useful for different purposes.
Different folks, strokes for different folks.
That's right.
Yes.
Okay, now we've got an item
Coming
from
toward the end here.
Counterpunch.
This from Counterpunch, December 7th. Permafrost hits a grim threshold. Well, we just talked about that.
We did indeed. Batteries are over, Tom. Let's put
Okay,
us up.
let's put us up again.
According to a research based on field observations conducted from 2003 to 2017, a large-scale carbon emission shift has occurred in the Arctic. We mentioned this earlier. This is the report. The region had been a carbon sink, which meant that it absorbed carbon and stored it underground, took it out of the air. But the entire Arctic now emits. But the entire Arctic now emits more carbon than it absorbs.
So that's a tipping point.
That's a tipping point. This can only be described as worse than bad news.
I think you're right.
It's not good news.
Not at all.
What we need to do is start drawing that carbon down out of the atmosphere again. And one of the things that we're learning here is that we can't count on the Arctic as a place to put it, at least not on the short term.
I think you're right.
Okay, and our last
This is the
item,
last item, isn't it?
is from Echo Watch.
We got a picture here coming up.
We do indeed.
So we've seen this picture already.
Yeah, we have. Tom and I did the December 19th show right before we recorded this, and this picture was in that show.
So this is Young Activists. It comes from Echo Watch on December 13th and is entitled Youth Climate Activists Storm COP25 Stage. That's exactly what they did.
Yeah. Young activists took over and occupied the main stage at the COP25 climate conference in Madrid. They demanded world leaders commit to far more ambitious action to address the ecological emergency. Quote, world leaders have left us no choice, end quote, the 14-year-old Alexandria Villaseñor of New York said. And this is, these are kids who want to have a future. And they don't understand why old fuddy-duddies who can't have a future because they're too old anyway.
That's exactly what's happening.
Can't allow them to have that future. because they need to get that last extra buck before they die.
They really need it too, don't they?
Anyway, I think it's time to say goodbye.
I think so.
Have
Goodbye,
a good
folks.
week. Come back next year, please.
Yeah, it is next year already, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, well, y'all come back now.